Hey, what is up guys? I'm Xteria, and this video is long overdue for me to make. And I know a lot of you guys have been requesting me to make a video on this comp, which is the flexible AD comp Ambessa. The reason why it took me so long to make this video is because I have to tank a lot of my LP just to fully understand how to play this comp. And the one thing that I was having a hard time to wrap my head around was Ambessa items. And I fully understand that her best in slots is having a defensive item, a healing item, and a damage item. Usually for like frontline melee carries, you want to do one defensive and two healing items, but Ambessa is different. You want her to have that damage item as her third item so she can one-shot the backline. And her core item is having an Edge of Night. If you have this item, it allows her to get more attack speed after it procs, and when it does proc, it takes away aggro so she can survive longer. But if you cannot build this item, a Quicksilver Sash is also a really good defensive item for her as well, but it's just Edge of Night, it's just better. And Bloodthirster is probably like one of the best healing items since they nerfed Hodge for this patch, since Hodge has like a 3% less Omni Vamp than it was before, but it's still an okay item if you need to build it over Bloodthirster. And then her best damage item hands down is going to be a Giant Slayer, since this allows you to kill tanks quicker and it makes you have enough damage to kill the backline. You can do Affinity Edge or like Deathblade or something, or even Sterax if you need to, but personally I've been winning a lot with this item or any of the artifact items like Prowler's Claw or even Infinity Force. The good substitute like Edge of Night items would be Death Defiance and Spectre, because these allow you to take away aggro, or Death Defiance, it allows you to die slower. And the secondary carry most of the time will be Corki. Best thing to have on Corki would be to have an Armor Shred item, which is Last Whisper, or if you're playing Vi as a secondary carry, then Even Shroud will be the best. But most of the time, playing Corki direction is better with Ambessa because you kind of need that backline damage. And you can build whatever you want as a damage item for Corki. It doesn't really matter, you just need him as the armor break unit, so Ambessa can do extra damage. And the best tank hands down to play with Ambessa would be Garen, since they're both emissaries, and you're gonna play 4 emissaries anyways. He's a really great tank for that, and you can put whatever health items you want on him, like Warmonks is the best one, or even Redemption, or even Sunfire. Honestly, those are like his best in slots, but if you want a super tank, this is not bad either. And a pretty good emblem you can pick up would be either Conqueror or even Sentinels if you have to, but Conqueror would be the best direction for Ambessa, so you can drop playing 4 emissaries and just play full Conqueror. The first item slams you want to build on this comp is mostly having either a Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge, Guardbreaker, or Last Whisper. These are core for Ambessa and slash backline units like Corki or something, since this allows you to win streak early with them, and it also transfers to the late game really well. Really good tank items you can build for first item slams would be like Sunfire or even Warmong, so you can have that health and some sort of damage like Sunfire. If you need a different armor break item, Even Shroud's not a bad one compared to having a Last Whisper, but always pick one or the other. And if you still need an anti-heal item, Red Buff is really good on like Corki, but if you have Sunfire, there's no need to build Red Buff because they're both doing the same thing anyways. Or if you really need to win streak and you don't have good components, but you have 2 gloves for whatever reason, these gloves is fine for that. The best opener we can do is having a Draven to be the Corki item holder, Darius as the Ambessa item holder, and a Mumu as the tank item holder, and a Violet. They synergize really well together because you get Walkshirt and Pit Fighter and Conqueror. If you have a level 2 Violet first, you can put the items on her instead of Darius, either one's fine. It's just as long as you have like really strong frontline and pretty decent backline that's AD, you can do that as an opener as well, but this is the best one to do because you get Econ with Conqueror from Draven and Darius. The default board you want to play is this you see here, and it is pretty expensive because you kind of need the Rumble in order to be online with this default board, and then level 9 you just throw in a Malzahar is fine, or any of the 6 cost units. Playing the budget version is basically if you don't have Rumble, you can play these units instead, and Conqueror, if you have the emblem for it, you can play full Conqueror without playing 4 Emissary, put the emblem on GP, and then you're going to be strong with this, since you're going to get a lot of stacks and a lot of money. If you can't get a Corki, you can play a secondary frontline with Ambessa, which is Vi, but the thing is, you kind of want Vi to have an Even Shroud, so if you have that Even Shroud direction, it's easier to play this. Or if not, you can put Last Whisper on either Tristana or Draven is fine, but this is the direction if you cannot hit the Corki, you could just play this as well. Since we briefly went over the unit section, I'm gonna show you in detail with the team builder section, so you guys can have a visual idea of how everything works. So the main opener you wanted to play is having a Draven with the Corki item holder. Most of the time it's Last Whisper, you want to do that. Visual for Corki items. And the synergy to fit with Draven is to have a Darius because you get Conqueror in, so you can make that stacks and you get damage. So it's a really good econ trait, but you have to be winning with it or get a lot of kills with it. Either one's fine. And we're gonna indicate this as the Ambessa item holder because theirs is okay with that. Personally, I prefer having Violet as the Ambessa item holder because she's a stronger unit, but whichever one you hit level 2 first is the one you would put Ambessa items on. And Violet gives you Pit Fighter with Draven, so they get really strong synergy there. makes Draven very powerful in the backline. And to complete this board, having a Mumu is really good because you also get that Watcher. If you cannot get him level 2, when you hit level 5, you could just get throw in Vander, and then when you hit level 5, you could just throw in your Powder so you can have 3 family as well. If you have the Violet as the item holder, this will make her really powerful. If not, it's fine, you could keep the item on Darius, unless you have the Magnetic Remover. You just remove the Violet, and you can just win streak with this. So this is a pretty decent opener, and then you just throw in like Watcher units over time, or you could throw in Urgot or something. Anything is fine, just throw out strong units so you can hit level 8 as fast as you can with it. Another opener direction that I do sometimes is because I can't hit this board since, you know, people like to play Violet reroll, is to have the Trundle direction where you have Trundle as the Ambessa item holder, and you have Maddie as the Corki item holder. So this will give you pretty good synergies because you throw in Stab in so you can get that Bruiser in. So you have pretty strong synergies here with Enforcer with Maddie. And then at level 4, you could throw in either Powder so you can get that Scrap in for Trundle. Just put one extra item on him and he's going to be very strong with it. Or you could throw in a sniper unit like maybe Zeri so you can have the snipers on. And then over time you just throw in pretty powerful units like for bruisers, for example, like maybe like Rennie or even a Set so you could be strong with this. Or you can just throw out maybe even Sentinel because you might want to use Rel later and throw in maybe a Singe or something. Let's just mix and match with whatever you can fit in over time so you can hit level 8 and play your Ambessa board. Essentially, any opener is fine if you save enough HP or even win streak with it. Just have the concept of trying to save HP as much as you can because when you switch to Ambessa, you're going to be really low later down the line. So just find out any AD direction that you can think of and just play that. And now I'm going to show you the default board, which is having the Ambessa in. So you transfer whoever as your Ambessa item holder to Ambessa, and you throw in or Corki, and whoever your Corki item holder is, just transfer the items there. So you have Ambessa and Corki in as the 2 main carries. Over time, you throw in units like Garen, Nami, Tristana, so you get 4 Emissary in, and you fill in the board with having the Conqueror, which is Rel. And since Rel is also a Sentinel unit, you throw in Rumble, you also get Scrap with Corki. And Corki also gets a Tiller's with Tristana, so that's why it's really good synergy with this. And to get the Watcher for Garen, you want to have Vladimir. So this is actually really good traits because you get Sorcerer with Nami as well. So you get a lot of Sorks here. Say for example, you get the Augment Bronze for Life. It's going to be very powerful with this comp. And the positioning you kind of want to do is having Ambessa on the edge. Because if you have, for example, Edge Knight, no pun intended, it's actually a really good item to put on the edge. So when the units hit her, it would proc her item and she could get to the backline easier this way. Because she was going to get untargeted. And Garen, if he has like super tank items like Warmogs or something, he's gonna last long enough for Ambessa to kill the backline. So positioning like this would be really, really good because you get Rumble as extra HP so you can survive longer as well. Corki, you want to put it in the same position as Ambessa. So if you flip this board like this way, this will be really good positioning as well. So right or left side, depending which one you want to do, Ambessa will kill the backline really easily. And you want to play against the backline. So if the backline is on the right side, you also play on the right. If the backline is on the left side, you also play on the left. So you can kill them as fast as you can. And then when you hit level 9, you can throw in units like Malzahar, because you also get Visionary with Rel. Or if you get 6 cost units, such as Victor is the best one, you can also win really hard with this unit, because this unit is broken. This is also fine. Or even Mel, you can put her in the 4th row or 3rd row. She's a 3 range, so it's kind of better putting in the 3rd row. But back row is fine as well, so she can survive longer. Or if you get a Warwick, and maybe healing item, or even a Thieves Gloves on him is very powerful, you kind of want to corner him like this. And the reason why is because when units get low enough, Warwick will jump out of this pocket and just execute a unit, and he will activate his ability to be in a frenzy state to kill everything around him. So you kind of want to pocket Warwick like this so he can survive and just jump out and kill and execute units. And this is it for the default board, but what if we cannot play this board? Well, we can also do the budget version, which is when you have your board default like this at level 8, if you cannot hit the Rumble, you can use GP instead. You still get that Scrap synergy with Corki, and you can throw in Swain instead of Vladimir, so you can get that Sork still with Nami. And now you also get Conqueror with Ambessa, and you also get Form Swapper with GP. And instead of Rel, you can just throw in a value unit such as Vi. Since they buffed her this pack, she's actually pretty powerful. And you can put GP in the front, or you can put him in the back. I prefer him in the front because if you don't have any items on GP as backline, for me personally, I feel like he's kind of useless. So if you put him in the front line, it's better. And you just have extra tanks on top of that. And the positioning doesn't really matter too much. You could do the same thing like I mentioned earlier, like right to left, depending on how you do it. Either one is fine. And the trick for this comp is when you hit level 9, then you can transfer back to the default board, which is having the Rumble instead of the GP, the Rel instead of the Vi, and then the Vladimir instead of the Swain. But I know it's going to be pretty hard to hit. So you can also go back to that board, which is instead of the Rumble, it's the GP instead of Rumble, instead of Vladimir, it's the Swain, and instead of Rel, it's the Vi. What you can do instead is when you hit level 9, and you can't hit the 2 cost units, but you hit, for example, a Jace, you can also play 4 Form Swapper where you take out Vi, and just have a lot of frontline with this, and a decent backline with Jace and the Crystal. And you can put the Crystal somewhere around here, here, or here. Doesn't really matter, ish. You kind of want the Crystal to be tanking too. For me personally, I like it when it tanks, so I like to do like this kind of positioning, so you can respawn it over and over. Or if you want it for the attack speed, then you can just put it around here, it's fine as well, to give attack speed for Corki and Jace. Either way is fine, doesn't really matter. But this version I didn't show in the PowerPoint slide because it would be too much to show, and it's also like kind of a pocket thing to do. It's not something you want to do most of the time, but if you do hit this, it's actually really powerful as well, playing 4 Form Swappers. And then for the no Corki version, you can also play like this. If you hit a Jace, you can play 4 Form Swapper with a Jace instead. It's also really good to do as well. If you can't hit a Jace, you can also do the no Corki version if you cannot hit Corki, and that is to have a TF over the Jace. So you could just put Last Whisper on him if you need to. You throw in a Draven over the Swain because you also get Pit Fighter with the Vi that we're going to trade over GP because you get really good synergies here. You also get Enforcer. You also get Quick Striker with Ambessa. So this is actually really good synergies here. And instead of Elise, you can do Vladimir. So this is a really good budget version of the no Corki. So this is like basically budget version if you cannot literally hit anything. But for emissaries, this is also decent as well. Or you can put Last Whisper on Draven or TF. Either one's fine, but I prefer it on the TF. And this board is not strong enough to win, but it is strong enough to sustain you to maybe a top 6 or even to pivot into the other 2 comps that I showed you. So this is just to hold out until you can hit your actual board. Because most of the time, when you roll for this board, it's going to be very hard to hit since there's a lot of 4 and 5 cost units you need to hit. So this is fine for a super low roll version of playing Ambessa. And if you get Conqueror emblem, which is a very easy direction to do because you just literally throw in all Conquerors, is to have a GP in as your Conqueror emblem holder because he's actually really powerful with it. And he also synergizes with other units such as Swain. And Swain's going to be your main tank instead of the Garen because you don't need to have 4 emissaries anymore since you want to play for 6 Conqueror. And to fill up the board, it would be to have a Mordekaiser in and a Rel. So from here, you could throw in like really good value units like a Lawi, so you can have that Sentinels in, and maybe you could throw in a mage unit such as a Zoe. And then over time, you can make these into 5 cost units like maybe even a Rumble and a LeBlanc. So any direction here is fine as full Conqueror, and as long as you have really strong tank items on Swain, you can last long enough with this board. And the positioning I kind of like to do is something like this-ish. Maybe Mordekaiser back here so he doesn't die as easy. And Ambessa as a second row instead of the front row because she is 2 range. So you can position her in a way where she doesn't die. So you can mix and match with like different kind of units. If you cannot hit Mordekaiser for whatever reason, Darius is fine until you find a Mordekaiser. But playing 6 Conqueror is pretty easy. Then you can reroll for GP3 or you can play for the 4 Form Swapper version if you want to play GP carry. So instead of having the LeBlanc in, you have Jace, and instead of having Rumble in, you have the Elise in. And then when you hit level 9, you just throw in like value unit, maybe Malzahar so you can get that Visionary in, or maybe even Rumble to get that Sentinel in, or Lawi is fine as well because you get pretty good synergies here. Or you can get the 6 cost units like Victor. So essentially playing Ambessa is just super flexible. I'm just trying to give you ideas on how to play all these versions of Ambessa, and these are probably about like 90% of the strongest versions of playing Ambessa. The augments you want to play is most of the time you want to pick up the artifact items. So the ones you want to auto click right away. If you see the augment, just take it. Potable Forge because every artifact item is really good for this comp besides AP ones, and there's only about like 4 AP ones out of like the 20 of them. So you have a high chance to get something good. And all that Shimmers allows you to get that either Mogul Mail if you need a tank item, or even Collector for Corki is very powerful. Even Ambessa is okay with Collector, but I prefer it on Corki instead. Living Forge, same thing. It gives you basically portable Forge every 10 rounds, so it's very powerful for that. Or Artifactory. If you have a lot of AP items, you can pick up this augment and just get rid of the AP items and turn it into artifact items. And Bronze for Life is super broken for this comp because you're playing a lot of different synergies, and on top of that, you get a lot of stats for this augment. Since the augment priority you want to do is econ, item, and combat, basically you want to econ first because you need a lot of gold. So good econ augments such as Raining Gold is very powerful for that, since you get a lot of free money, or even slamming so you can hit level 8 easier, and you just want to slam your items right away. Or you can get item augments such as Prize Fighter. Technically is an econ augment as well because you get a lot of items from it. And speaking of items, Dark Alley is very powerful for Ambessa, because if you get a cloak on her, you have multiple Ambessas on the board, and with Edge of Night on top of that, it procs Edge of Night on each one of the Ambessas that clones. And since you need a lot of swords, Spear's Will is really good for that. Or if you cannot get an Edge of Night, Not Today is pretty good for that. Coronation is a really good meta augment, and it's a really good combat augment because it gives you an item, and it gives you a +1 unit because it gives you a Tactician Crown. So you get really strong stats for this. And just a decent meta augment overall. Piercing Lotus allows you to break armor magic resist by like 20%, which is not as equal to as a Last Whisper, because Last Whisper is 30% and this thing is 20%, but it allows your ability to crit, so it's really good for that too. And it's a really powerful combat augment. The anomalies we want to choose for is having on Ambessa. Invisibility is her best anomaly hands down. This allows her to get de-aggroed, and this allows her to do a lot of damage. Repulsor is a very interesting one on Ambessa because it allows you to knock their tank into the back line, so Ambessa can push the tank forward and then attack the backline that way. So it's pretty interesting like interaction, and it's really good for it that way, and it gives her a lot of attack speed. So this is just like a situational one, and it's just a really funny one to see. And Berserker's Rage is a really good damage one overall for Ambessa. So if you can't find any other decent ones, just look for any damage ones, like for example Comeback Story in Ambessa is fine as well. If not, you could also choose Corki as the anomaly. And Combat Story, like I said earlier, really good damage for him. Attack Expert is just a decent damage one for any 80 units. And a really good powerful one for me personally would be Touch of Frost, because this gives you a lot of CC since it slows down anyone that he hits with his ability, and his ability hits almost everything on the board. On top of that, if you kill the unit that he hits the ability on around it, they will get stunned, so this allows you to have extra CC on the board. And then Garen, if you need a tank anomaly, these ones are really good, so any tank anomaly is fine on him. The playstyle we want to play this comp is the high tempo, basically fast to level 8. At stage 2-1, just level to 4, makes you save HP, you have more units on the board, and higher chance to have better unit odds. At stage 2-3, always make intervals of 10 gold, 10, 20, 30 gold. If you don't do this, you'll be poor for the rest of the game. Unless you have intervals of like 14 gold, 24 gold, 34 gold, you can pre-level to 5, which looks something like this, 8 out of 10 XP. The reason why you do this is because when you come back from Carousel, you have a level 5 shot. It gives you a 2% chance to get a 4 cost unit. If you don't do this, you can skip it. It's fine as well, because at stage 2-4, you just hit level 5 anyways. So if you don't hit level 5 beforehand, you can hit level 5 now. And at stage 2-6 or even 2-5, either one, make intervals of 10 gold again, like 20, 30, 40 gold, so you can keep making econ, because if you don't, you'll be poor. At stage 3-2, always hit level 6, which is around the second augment. If you hit level 6 here, it makes you stronger and you have better shop odds as each round goes on. At stage 3-7 or even earlier, you can hit level 7, and then at stage 4-2 or 4-1, hit level 8 and roll for your board. Most of the time now in higher elo, the meta is to do it at 4-1, and the reason why you do that is because you don't want people to take your units. Unless you're not contested, then you can wait till 4-2, let people roll down for a bit so you can have a higher chance to hit your units that way. And that is it for the most flexible AD comp, Ambessa. If you have any questions, just let me in the comment section down below. I'll try to answer to the best of my capabilities, or if you want me to cover a different comp that I haven't done yet, I can try to do that. Or if you want me to make a repeat video, like for example like Twitch comp for example, I could make a newer version of that comp again because it's kind of outdated now in my opinion. But until then, I'll see you guys on the next one. Later.